What's up, everyone? Good morning. All right, so Wednesdays we're committed to philosophies, and in that the practice is a little different than I think we're used to, in the sense of what we think we should be doing when we're meditating. And so philosophy is a huge part of this process, and philosophical meditation is essentially contemplative meditation, meaning you have to sit there and process ideas, and that takes a lot of brain power. The mind is stimulated, and in that thoughts arise, and this is usually the exact opposite of most instruction, whether it's yogic meditation, which is like fixate your mind on a specific point, or mindfulness, which is essentially saying let your mind wander when it must wander, but then sort of come back to a familiar point as well. The contemplative aspect is enormous. It's instrumental in changing the worldview. And so there's a particular teacher that I really adore. His name is Sri Aurobindo. He was a contemporary of Gandhi. And compared to Gandhi, he was very militant. He was developing or building a militia against Britain in case peace did not work. So he's a very sort of like realistic character and very fiery and passionate. He was educated in Europe, came back to India to like save his motherland. And then he found spirituality, and it sort of reframed his whole world, and he immediately redirected all of his energy, which he obviously had a lot of if he's building a secret militia. He redirected all of his energy into his own personal spiritual pursuit. And that was the end, and that was his path, and he realized this was the point of his existence and what he believed, and most yogis believe, all of existence, which is important, and not in a dogmatic way. The yogis are very sort of patient with this idea that humans share a single purpose, and that purpose is to define, redefine, and build upon personal consciousness and in that collective consciousness. And so one element of that is thinking about the world in creative, unique ways. And for me, it's always enjoyable to understand that when you start to build new associations, when you not only reframe your concepts of certain things, but then add and complicate those concepts to create a more intricate web of ideas, that's a neurological process. That's a physical process. And you're teaching or forcing your neurons, individual brain cells, which are unique in shape. For a second, it's like you have the body of the neuron, you have dendrites coming out of the head of the neuron, essentially, and then an axon, a tail, with other sort of like limbs or branches. And then in between each neuron are synapses. There's spaces in which individual neurons emit neurotransmitters. And so they spit neurotransmitters through the vacuum, the microscopic vacuum of your brain tissue, and then the next neuron collects it, and so on and so forth. Each neuron has thousands of sort of branches reaching out into thousands of other branches of other neurons. And so when you start to build your thought process and tether ideas to other ideas and forge them with symbolism and connect that symbolism to reality, all of those neurons are literally webbing together, right? And for that reason, a nice example are logos or flags. The reason we can associate a flag, a piece of fabric with a certain set of colors to a country, and then associate that country with its leader and its people and its cultures, and then agree and open up with that country and that symbol, or disagree with it and sort of close off, is because all of these different neurons in different sections of the brains that are processing colors and shapes and human culture and behavior and morality are coming together and represented in a flag or a logo. So that's essentially what we're doing today. Sri Aurobindo said that divinity, right, God, had 3 great accomplishments. And I think it's fairly obvious if you take a second to think about the 3 great accomplishments of God. And so I'm going to give you, 1 minute to contemplate that on your own. What are or could be these great accomplishments? Who has 1 accomplishment? Who has 2 accomplishments? Who has 3? Okay, the first is existence, right? Life. That is the first accomplishment. The second accomplishment is living life. So not just matter, not just stars, not just gravity, not just radiation, but plants and cells and animals. And then the third great accomplishment is conscious life, human beings. Yogis believe that human beings hold a very, very, very special place among the living creatures of existence. And so it is material existence, living matter, and consciousness. And so the way Sri Aurobindo perceived divinity and its relationship with the physical world is that the divine, God, the intangible, the oversoul, right? And these are huge sort of words, is not done with its duty. It's working to achieve itself, just as we are. And our need to achieve something, because we are the same as sort of the divine, suggests that divinity also has this need to achieve itself. Nothing within the field of sort of the physical is fully accomplished. Everything, even God and the divine, is affected by change and desire and growth. And this is the beauty of the Buddha's insight that desire leads to dissatisfaction, that this truth of reality affected even the gods. And so it wasn't held as some moral concept, it was held as a truth of physical existence. Desire is stimulated by dissatisfaction, and this is an emotional expression of just the force of change. So anyways, what we're talking about is, when you look out into your space right now, you see a computer, and you see walls, and you see chairs, and glass, and cars outside. And so this is the first great accomplishment. There is physical form. But then you might see trees, and plants, and animals, and birds, and cats, and dogs, and even your own body. And so when you see living organisms, Sri Aurobindo would see that, right, and connect all of this stuff in his head and believe that God was somehow reaching its existence, its aliveness, into those living organisms more than it was reaching its aliveness into rocks. And so it's sort of held back by the physical, by the purely material. And with living organisms, it's making its way through a little bit more, very much like a baby being born into the world. And then when you look at people, you have a screen full of faces that the divine is a little bit more through, is a little bit more birthed into the physical world than with cats and dogs and birds and crabs and alligators and lizards. And so when Sri Aurobindo would look out into the world, he would see the effort of the divine trying to hatch itself into physical reality. And so this is a really, really cool idea. And if you work it and somehow make it cinch and click into your own head, and that is you literally attempting to articulate your neurons and force their dendrites and axons closer and closer together, essentially one day they will all cinch up. And it'll be very easy for you to look out into life, and when you remember Sri Aurobindo's sort of concepts, it will change the way you see your planet and your day and your drive to work and the view from your window. And so what we're going to do today is we're just going to contemplate that. We have 15 minutes to think about these ideas. We can allocate 5 minutes to each of these concepts. And then open our eyes after some serious contemplation and some manipulating of neurons, and see if your perception of your room, of your view, is actually a little bit different. All right, so that's it. These are Sri Aurobindo's 3 achievements of the divine. And so this is the philosophical point today. Strong seated position. Rest your wrists on your knees. Nice straight spine. Long arms. Rotate your palms up to the sky. Now bring a random finger to each thumb. Shut your jaw, tuck your chin in slightly, decompress the base of your skull, and close your eyes. So stillness is paramount, even if discomfort arises. Breathe deeply into the belly. Feel the bottom half of your rib cage swell more than the upper half of your rib cage. As you exhale, everything deflates at the same time, but try to stay tall. And so meditation as a physical process is very, very simple, just not easy. Do not move. Slow down your rhythms by slowing down your breaths. Tolerate your thoughts. The thought that tells you to itch, to adjust, to open your eyes. And boost your peace by facilitating patience and obliterating expectations. By facilitating patience and obliterating expectations. You're just sitting down. Philosophical practice, contemplation, the first great achievement of the divine, of that which is beyond comprehension, but must exist because reality exists. The first great achievement of that force is physical existence. And so essentially what I'd like you to do is think about physical existence and feel it around you, your clothes, your home, the material all of that's made from, stars and stone and water and gravity and radiation, atoms. And as you breathe more and more slowly and hold your stillness as your mind wanders, do your best to come back to the appreciation of the physical world. And from here, include living organisms, cells, bacteria, fish, insects, mammals, primates, birds, trees, fungi, coral. That the universe didn't just pop into existence, it now harbors life. And that as you think of this life, the creative thought, the reframing is that the divine, the force that holds the title of creator, exists more powerfully in life than inanimate matter. That is the unique idea. And as you think of plants and fungi and coral and animals, you're attempting to appreciate that there is more spirit within them than rocks, or than ice, or water. And now there are human beings, uniquely conscious, uniquely sentient, uniquely reflective. And so in Sri Aurobindo's worldview, human beings held the most divinity because of this consciousness. That they and they alone could perceive the divine nestled in stone, nestled in leaves, nestled in animals, and nestled within themselves. That they alone could recognize through their intellect that everything was connected. Slow down your breath. Be patient. Obliterate expectations. And think creatively. Now stop contemplating and just listen to the world around you. Basic mindfulness. Let the thoughts flow. But at the same time, feel the steadiness of your breath and the relaxation of your body and muscles. Appreciate how much energy it took to think creatively and critically. And now savor this state of mental rest. You're just sitting there. Attempt to feel that you are engulfed in the three accomplishments of the divine. You are engulfed in a physical reality. You are surrounded by life. And you yourself are that conscious center point. The shift in Aurobindo's concept is that the divine, that consciousness that organizes existence, does not exist equally in all things. So bring your hands to heart center, something like a prayer, and appreciate that you, because you are human, hold a unique quantum of consciousness, and in that there is a responsibility to do the work of good. Rocks don't have that responsibility. Animals have less of that responsibility. Thumb knuckles to third eye center, so keep your hands as they are. Just lift your thumbs to touch the center of your forehead, honoring this consciousness. Essentially, yogis associate God as consciousness. That consciousness is Purush, and the shell of matter that it exists within, if it exists within it, is Prakriti. And you are, as a human being, the perfect expression of both. Sense your consciousness, aware of your presence or your distraction, aware of your agreement or your disagreement, aware of your happiness or of your impatience. It's the consciousness that matters, not the subject. With an exhale, release your wrists to your knees, random finger to each thumb. And now with an inhale, slowly open your eyes, stay in this meditative mode, this contemplative mode, and look at physical existence. Look at a plant, look at a wall, look at a chair. Consider yourself, see your hands or your body in your peripheral vision. Appreciate consciousness very obviously does not exist equally in all of those subjects. And that maybe, just maybe, consciousness as God exists uniquely within human beings.